Russia has a long and complex military history. It is a history marked by both stunning victories and crushing defeats. The question, does Russia always win its wars, is too simple. A closer look at history reveals a more nuanced answer. We can see this complexity most clearly in Russia's experiences during World War I and World War II. These conflicts highlight the factors that contribute to both victory and defeat. World War I, also known as the Great War, began in 1914. It was a conflict that would reshape the world, involving many of the great powers of the time. The war was characterized by trench warfare, massive battles, and unprecedented levels of destruction and loss of life. Nations were drawn into a conflict that spanned continents and involved millions of soldiers and civilians alike. Russia entered the war as part of the Allied powers. The Russian Empire, under Tsar Nicholas II, saw the war as an opportunity to assert its influence and protect its interests. However, the decision to join the war would have profound and far-reaching consequences for Russia and its people. The Allies included France, Great Britain, Italy, Japan, and eventually the United States. These nations formed a coalition to counter the threat posed by the Central Powers. Each member of the Allies brought its own strengths and resources to the war effort, creating a formidable alliance. Together, they fought against the Central Powers. The Central Powers were led by Germany and included Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire. This alliance sought to expand its influence and territory, leading to a brutal and protracted conflict. The Central Powers consisted mainly of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. These nations had their own ambitions and grievances, which they sought to address through military means. The war would see these powers clash with the Allies in a series of devastating battles. Russia's early involvement in the war was marked by a series of setbacks. Despite its large army, Russia struggled to achieve significant victories. The harsh realities of modern warfare quickly became apparent, and the Russian military faced numerous challenges on the battlefield. The Russian army was large but poorly equipped. Many soldiers lacked basic supplies and modern weaponry, making it difficult to compete with the better-equipped forces of the Central Powers. This lack of resources and preparation would prove to be a significant disadvantage. It struggled to compete with the more modern German forces. The German military was well prepared and utilized advanced tactics and technology, giving them a significant edge in many engagements. The disparity in capabilities between the two armies was stark, and had a profound impact on the course of the war. This struggle was evident in one of the first major engagements of the war, the Battle of Tannenberg, in 1914. The battle was a catastrophic defeat for Russia, resulting in heavy losses and a significant blow to Russian morale. The outcome of Tannenberg highlighted the challenges Russia would face throughout the war, and foreshadowed the difficulties that lay ahead. The Battle of Tannenberg was a disaster for Russia. The Russian army suffered a heavy defeat, losing tens of thousands of men and a significant amount of equipment. This defeat exposed the weaknesses of the Russian army and the Tsarist regime that governed Russia. However, Russia's problems ran deeper than military defeats. The country was plagued by internal strife. Political unrest and social inequalities fueled tensions within Russian society. The Tsarist regime, led by Tsar Nicholas II, was seen by many as out of touch and unresponsive to the needs of the people. These internal divisions weakened Russia's war effort. The strain of World War I proved too much for Russia to bear. In 1917, revolution swept through the country. Tsar Nicholas II was forced to abdicate, ending centuries of Tsarist rule. The revolution plunged Russia into chaos. The new Bolshevik government, led by Vladimir Lenin, was eager to end the country's involvement in the war. In 1918, Russia signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk with Germany. The treaty was a humiliating piece for Russia. It forced Russia to give up vast amounts of territory and pay heavy reparations. World War I was a costly defeat for Russia, both militarily and politically. 2 decades later, the world was once again engulfed in war. The echoes of the First World War had barely faded when the drums of conflict began to beat once more. The interwar period, marked by economic turmoil and political instability, set the stage for another global confrontation. World War II began in 1939 with the German invasion of Poland. This aggressive move by Nazi Germany shattered the fragile peace in Europe and prompted Britain and France to declare war on Germany. The invasion was swift and brutal, showcasing the devastating effectiveness of blitzkrieg tactics. Initially, the Soviet Union, as Russia was now known, remained neutral. Despite the growing tensions and the clear threat posed by Nazi Germany, the Soviet leadership chose a path of cautious non-involvement, hoping to avoid the horrors of another war. In fact, the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany had signed a non-aggression pact, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, in 1939. This agreement, named after the foreign ministers of the two nations, was a strategic move to buy time and secure their respective interests. This pact divided Eastern Europe into spheres of influence. The secret protocols of the agreement outlined the division of territories, allowing both powers to expand their control without immediate conflict. Poland, the Baltic states and parts of Finland and Romania were divided between the two. However, the pact proved to be short-lived. The uneasy alliance between the two totalitarian regimes was always fraught with suspicion and mutual distrust. As Germany's ambitions grew, the fragile peace began to crumble. In June 1941, Germany broke the agreement and invaded the Soviet Union. This massive military operation, known as Operation Barbarossa, was the largest invasion in the history of warfare, involving millions of troops and a vast array of military equipment. Operation Barbarossa, as the invasion was known, forced the Soviet Union into World War II on the side of the Allies. The Soviet Union, now facing the full might of the German war machine, had no choice but to join forces with Britain, the United States, and other allied nations in a desperate struggle for survival. The German invasion of the Soviet Union was initially successful. German forces advanced deep into Soviet territory, capturing vast amounts of land and inflicting heavy casualties. However, the tide began to turn in 1942. The Battle of Stalingrad, which raged for months in the city of Stalingrad, became a turning point in the war. The Soviet victory at Stalingrad was followed by another decisive victory at the Battle of Kursk in 1943. Kursk was the largest tank battle in history. The Soviet victory marked a turning point on the Eastern Front, putting Germany on the defensive. The Soviet Union's success in World War II was due in part to the country's wartime alliances. The Soviet Union received significant material aid from its allies, particularly the United States and Great Britain. This aid helped the Soviet Union to sustain its war effort and ultimately achieve victory. Another key factor in the Soviet victory was the country's industrial capacity. Under Joseph Stalin's leadership, the Soviet Union had undergone rapid industrialization. This industrialization allowed the Soviet Union to produce vast quantities of weapons and war materials, which were essential to its victory. While World War II is remembered as a great victory for Russia, it is important to remember that the country's military history is not without its failures. The triumph over Nazi Germany in 1945 is often highlighted as a pinnacle of Russian military prowess, showcasing the resilience and determination of the Red Army. However, this victory is just one chapter in a long and complex history of warfare that includes both significant successes and notable defeats. Throughout its history, Russia has faced numerous military challenges and setbacks. In the 19th century, Russia suffered defeats in the Crimean War, from 1853 to 1856, and the Russo-Japanese War, from 1904 to 1905. These conflicts were marked by strategic missteps and logistical failures that exposed the vulnerabilities of the Russian military. The Crimean War, in particular, was a significant blow to Russian prestige. The war saw Russia pitted against an alliance of the Ottoman Empire, France, Britain, and Sardinia. Despite initial confidence, the Russian forces were unable to secure a decisive victory and ultimately faced a humiliating defeat. This war highlighted the need for modernization within the Russian military and exposed the weaknesses of the Tsarist regime. Similarly, the Russo-Japanese War was another devastating conflict for Russia. The war, which took place in the early 20th century, saw the Russian Empire clash with the rising power of Japan. Despite having a larger and more established military, Russia was outmaneuvered and outclassed by the Japanese forces. The defeat in this war further exposed the inefficiencies and corruption within the Russian military establishment. These defeats were not just military setbacks, they had profound political and social implications. The failures in the Crimean and Russo-Japanese wars contributed to growing discontent among the Russian populace, and played a role in the eventual downfall of the Tsarist regime. The inability to secure victories in these conflicts undermined the legitimacy of the ruling class and fueled revolutionary sentiments. Moving forward to the 20th century, the Soviet Union experienced its own share of military challenges. One of the most notable was the intervention in Afghanistan in the 1980s. This conflict, often referred to as the Soviet-Afghan War, was a protracted and costly engagement that lasted for nearly a decade. The Soviet-Afghan War drained Soviet resources and contributed to growing disillusionment with the Soviet system. The war was characterized by fierce resistance from Afghan guerrilla fighters, who were supported by various international actors. Despite deploying a significant number of troops and utilizing advanced military technology, the Soviet Union was unable to achieve a decisive victory. The prolonged conflict in Afghanistan had far-reaching consequences for the Soviet Union. It not only strained the Soviet economy, but also eroded public support for the government. The war became a symbol of the broader struggles and inefficiencies within the Soviet system, contributing to the eventual collapse of the Soviet Union in the early 1990s. In conclusion, while Russia has experienced significant military victories, its history is also marked by notable defeats. These defeats have had profound impacts on the country's political and social landscape, shaping the course of Russian history in ways that continue to resonate today. Understanding this mixed record of success and failure provides valuable insights into the complexities of Russian military history and its enduring influence on the nation's identity. Russia's military history is a complex tapestry of victories and defeats. The country's experiences in World War I and World War II demonstrate that military success is not guaranteed. It is influenced by a multitude of factors, including internal stability, technological advancement, logistical capabilities, and the strength of alliances. The question of whether Russia always wins its wars is, therefore, misleading. A more accurate assessment recognizes the complexity of Russia's military history and acknowledges that both victory and defeat have played significant roles in shaping the country's destiny.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and comment down.